representing Franchise Secrets, Eric Von Horn.
Hey listeners, if you're not in the Franchise Secrets Facebook group, what are you waiting for? It's franchisesecrets.com/Facebook. Now, this is a large community of franchisees, franchisors, buyers, sellers, anybody that's involved in franchising in any way. It's the community to go to. Ask your questions, get answers, help people out, and get help. It's franchisesecrets.com/Facebook. Welcome to the Franchise Secrets Podcast. Your host, Eric Van Horn, here today with my special guest, Ryan Casey. Ryan is no stranger to the podcast. He's no stranger to franchising, a Orange Theory franchisee, former Cutco guru, and that makes him a sales guru, in my opinion, and the opinion of a lot of people that he's helped through COVID. And they've lost sales, and he's helped Massage Envy, Amazing Lash Studio franchisees, Yoga 6, Club Pilates, StretchLab, CodeWiz, Row House, you name it. He's worked with their owners and their owners' managers to help change their sales culture and take them from not having a lot of success to having a lot of success. And I've seen it firsthand. So Ryan, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me. I always love chatting with Eric Van Horn here.
Dude, it's always good. It's always good hanging out with you. We get to see each other a lot. You're part of the Tribe Mastermind, the Tribe Scale Mastermind. We're part of other masterminds together, investing masterminds, front row dads. So we get to see a lot of each other. And it seems like we've known each other for longer than we actually have. But I mean, it was like since COVID as we really got to be friends.
Yeah, it was right that March. I was talking with Darcy, I believe, at our Sodak Shindig, and he's like, how long have you known Eric? I'm like, well, it feels like a lot longer, years and years, but it's been pretty recent.
It has. It's been good. There's been a lot that's happened since COVID, and COVID is coming back, and you felt the impact of COVID more than a lot of people that I know, being in the market that you're at in Orange Theory. So give the crew here, the crowd, the Franchise Secret listeners, who you are briefly if they don't know who you are. And then I want to dive into some sales stuff. You help franchisors and franchisees do better at sales. So who's Ryan Casey? How'd you get started in franchising?
Yeah, I was kind of sick of just watching my money go up and down. I wanted to put my money into an investment that my skill set could make an impact. And so I got involved in Orange Theory back in 2015. And at the time I had a full-time job. I was working with Cutco. I trained managers how to open up their own locations and train their sales reps. We ended up opening 2 locations. My parents were partners. We did really well. Dad life is always my first priority. So I did 1 year with both studios open and still working. And I said, you know what? The studios are going great. I can hang up my hat on the day-to-day job. And I left my full-time job in January of 2020. 2 months later was COVID. And it's been an interesting story. But that's when I got a call with you. And you had asked, how did we get our studios to the level? I think we had 1,200 reoccurring pre-COVID, had great studios. And I told you, well, we just basically teach them how to sell. And we kind of got into that. We did a quick sales challenge in the summer, and that was a lot of fun. And we had people that were asking for more. And so I asked you, is it cool if I run with this? And I've helped a lot of people in the last year since then. It's been great.
It's been great. And I get to hear the feedback that you may or may not get to hear from some of the better Massage Envy franchisees, bigger Massage Envy franchisees, multiple ones that have come to me and said, Ryan had such an impact on my business by what he taught us, and he taught our managers and sales team. And you've done a lot of training inside the mastermind, helping managers, and done all kinds of things. But today I want to talk about sales. I know it's so critical for so many franchisees and franchisors, and I would like to hit it from both angles, because you're going in kind of helping franchisees with their sales processes and systems and making them better. But a lot of times the franchisor should be the one paying for this and actually doing it. And I see this as a weak area with a lot of franchises, even the really good franchises out there. And I don't want to, dog them because franchisors have so many different things going on. And I get it. As I help found a franchisor, and I've just been advising with a lot of franchisors, they've got so many things that they're doing. Sales is one of those things that seems to fall through the cracks unless the founder or CEO has a sales background and they understand the importance of it. So let's kind of set the stage here. Franchisors. Let's talk about franchisors and like what is maybe a level one franchisor? What kind of training would they give their franchisees in terms of sales? What would that look like? And I want to kind of go from the worst of the franchisors out there to the best, like what they're doing. And I know one brand that I think is probably one of the best in how they are coaching their franchisees up in sales. But let's start at the beginning. Level one franchisor. What kind of support, help are they giving their franchisees in terms of sales?
Well, I've talked with some franchisees that have nothing really. There's not a script. They're like, you meet with the person. Here's the prices. Here's what you need to charge the people. But there's not a script of how you teach people. There's not even really a flow of the process. And so that was where I would put at the bottom. And I'm not going to name names, but I've heard some firsthand feedback of that's where they're at. Can you help me a little bit?
If you're a franchisor and you're interested in becoming one of my private clients, the thing that I do best is help franchisors with their franchise development process. As I've talked to many franchisors over the years, hundreds of franchisors, most of them have broken processes and they have a lot of holes that they are letting really good candidates fall out. The buyers are falling out and they are spending way too much time with the wrong people who don't end up buying. As a result, they are not able to be very effective in that process. I love to help franchisors who have a broken franchise development process or that just needs to be optimized. Message me or email me at eric@franchisesecrets.com, ERIK@franchisesecrets.com, or sign up for the monthly memo and reach out to me. And it may not even be any of the brands that I mentioned at the beginning of the show, because you talk to a lot of different franchisees through your challenges that are in a lot of different systems. And these are people that have paid you a lot of money for your specific coaching and they've taken your course and whatnot. So I just want to be clear on that. So the worst of the worst don't have anything. The next step is having some scripts and a roadmap for your franchisees so they at least have a script. So what would an example of some good scripts for a particular franchisee to have?
Well, handling incoming calls for your leads, the outgoing calls. Now so much is done over text and email, having scripts, but also coaching on where to personalize it. And so there has to be some balance. If everything's too scripted, that's not great. And that's where kind of the training comes in as well, is that you, as a franchisor, you can't just say, here's a roadmap, here's black and white, just do this to the T. There has to be some wiggle room of, here's the skill level involved. Here's how you make it personal. Here's how you make it your own. Here's how you communicate your studio or your business culture through this communication. So that's a big part. And then the same thing with sales. Every conversation is going to be different. So you can't give a straight script for every sales conversation that's going to work. You have to give resources that will teach your people to understand why they are doing what they're doing, what they are supposed to accomplish. And if they understand, the conversations are going to go a lot better versus them just trying to read a script every time.
So franchisees, we're kind of picking on the franchisors right now, saying the franchisor should be giving this to you. Now, they may or may not give this to you. If you're a franchisee, you don't have anything, well, that's what you bought, and no use trying to get them to do something that they don't have. Go out there and get it yourself now. And any franchise organization is going to have their strengths and weaknesses. So if their weakness is sales, now this is your responsibility. Flip the script. Think about it this way. How good are you as an owner supporting your sales staff, the people on the front line? If you don't have the scripts for them and kind of the roadmap and what Ryan's talking about, now it's your fault. Maybe you should have had that from your franchisor, maybe not, but now that it's in your lap and it's your responsibility. So where do they even start, Ryan? Let's say they're thinking, oh my gosh, I'm at level 1, maybe at level 2 with scripts, and they want to improve. where do they even start improving? What would you recommend to that franchisee?
From the franchisee level, it really comes down to time, right? You're no matter how good your franchisor is, they cannot pass down the silver bullet, which now automatically your sales are going to be great, because sales is a skill. It takes time and effort to develop a skill. So as the franchisee, you're responsible for facilitating that time through your manager, or if you're an owner operator, then yourself. So, your franchisor either gives you great materials or they don't give you great materials, whatever, right? But whatever you get, you got to make sure that you're then spending the time and working with your staff, getting in the repetitions, having the conversations after the events, both the good sales, the no sales, talking about the whys behind it. And that's where you're really going to get that development. But if a franchisee or a manager doesn't have a sales background, that's another big area of opportunity that I've seen with a lot of franchisees, is they just don't know what they don't know.
Well, let's stop here and let people know how to reach out to you, because I know that you give a lot of really good stuff out for free in the Franchise Secrets Facebook group. But how do people get into your world? Because I know that you're always giving. Sometimes you have free stuff that you're giving out. So how do people find you?
Yeah, franchiseSalesTraining.com is my website. So franchiseSalesTraining.com. You can also find me on YouTube, and I put out a good amount of videos on there, all free content. From time to time. Yesterday, I just did a webinar on increasing staff retention. So how to really work with your staff. So we're always having stuff like that.
And you announced that in the Franchise Secrets Facebook group too, I think.
Yep.
So Ryan is one of the few guys that get to be in the Franchise Secrets Facebook group, giving stuff out. They get into his world, but there's such valuable stuff that he gives away for free. I know that he's a valuable resource to that community. So if you're not in the Franchise Secrets Facebook group, go to franchisesecretsgroup.com and get in that Facebook group. It's about 1,600 members plus and growing. We don't allow people to poach. We don't allow people to pitch. We just allow people to help each other out and ask really good questions, and everybody elevate together. And Ryan's one of the guys that does that the best in the group. So that's how they kind of, if they don't have anywhere else to go, they can start getting into your world, start learning some of those things. So now let's say, there's an owner, they know that they have this need, they're starting to get some traction, and let's say they're not working with you. What's the next step? Like how do they go from an average or okay sales culture, sales training and team to having an extraordinary one? Or are there a lot of steps in between ordinary and extraordinary?
It could be quite a few. It really depends. But I think the first thing is knowing where you want to go. So I'm a big fan of sharing information. I know some franchisors are better than others of like, hey, here's your top people. And if you can identify the top people in your brand, making sure you're reaching out to them and saying, hey, first, just where are they at? What are some of the percentages? What are the metrics that you want to be shooting for? And when something catches your eye, like, oh my gosh, your show for your intro class is twice what ours are. That's a big spark of, I need to ask some questions there. But finding where other people are at with their metrics, and then kind of making your roadmap from there. Okay, here's where we are. Here's where we want to go, right? We need to increase our closing percentage. Well, that's going to be something that's going to take some time. And we need to dedicate, hey, once a week, we're going to be doing some role playing with our staff and starting to take on that area and see how much we can move the needle. So I think at first, starts with the where you want to end up. And sometimes you don't know what's good if you haven't been reaching out to people within your network.
I think that's a good point too. Know your numbers. You got to know your numbers to know who's excelling and where you might be excelling or where you're weak. So real quick, some of the numbers inside your Orange Theory, not actual numbers, but just the metrics that you follow. What are those things so we can get inside Ryan Casey's mind on how he manages his own studios?
Yeah, for when I meet with a studio manager, I generally look at what is our show for we call them the intros or the guest. And I'm looking at that number. Generally, I want 70 to 80% of a show rate from there. And if that's not happening, then I know there's something that we can improve on, right? If to get it to 80 to 90, that's going to be pretty tough, right? But if we're at 40 or 50, that's red flags are going up. And I know we can dig in with the people, what's happening on the phone, we can improve that. The next thing I look at is our first time guest closing. Multiple brands give away 1 free class, 2 free class, 1 week, whatever. I don't care how many free things we give them. I still want them closed after their first interaction with us. So if they still get another 2 free classes, great. We can post date it after that. I want them signed up right then. So that is the big number I look at for there. And then I'll look at it from the coach side. So with Orange Theory, our sales associates do the majority of the sale, but the coach is the one who builds most of the value and gets most of the time with them during that class. So I also look at what is our coach sales rate, not necessarily because they're doing but they're also doing the handoff with the sales associate and look for any patterns there. But those are my first 3 indicators. But those indicators really are just leading me to who do I need to spend time with, right? That's what the number is.
I like it. So let's talk about the coaches, because you've got the sales associates and then you got the coaches. The coaches can sell without selling because they're out there, they're teaching, they're coaching. The members are listening to them, engaging with them in a different way. And I would imagine the members, even or future members, have a different mindset around their engagement with that coach because they're not feeling sold. So do the coaches know that, and how are they trained to build rapport or to build value?
We just did a separate coaching or sales coaching with my coaches group where we talked about our sales process, and some of them we didn't spend as much time with. And I said, hey, here's where you really play the role. But a bottom line is the sale is made when a customer sees more value than price. And the coach is the one who's going to provide the majority of the value. So some of the things that are important are that rapport, building a connection with them, making them feel like they're part of the community right from the very beginning. Specific needs of that client are addressed is another big point. And so that has to come from that front desk person who spends the 30 minutes or 20 minutes before asking their questions, asking their goals. Their job in the handoff to the coach is to really be able to trim it down to 1 or 2 talking points where they can just give them a little card and the coach can look at that and say, boom, I know how to talk to this person and really address their need in a short amount of time. Because the coach has a lot going on. If they have 2 or 3 new people in a class and there's other 25, 30 people in the class, that's a lot to manage. So we want to try to keep that as simple for them as possible.
Ryan, talking to you right now reminds me of why all these franchisees reach out to me and tell me how much impact you've had on their business. It also reminds me of them telling me Ryan's too cheap. He needs to increase his prices. So I started out by like, these guys paid you a lot of money, but they didn't feel like they paid you enough money. So listeners, if you are needing help with some of the sales stuff, Ryan's got a course that is underpriced, overvalued, underpriced, but he's fantastic at what he does. So I just want to hit that real quick before I forget. What's the course? How do people find it?
Yeah, it's the Real Sales Training Course, and REAL stands for results through empathy, asking questions, and learning, right? The thing with most of the people who are doing the selling in franchises, none of them like sales. Most of them hate sales or they're scared to death of sales. Nobody goes to work for a yoga studio or a Lash boutique because they love sales. They want to go there because they like beauty or yoga or whatever it is. So I think that's where the teaching is really helpful. A lot of times you get the sales training and people are intimidated by the sales part of it. And I'm a pretty unintimidating guy. I was scared to death when I started sales. I was a nervous kid. My dad laughed, like rolling on the ground laughing when I told him I was going to start a sales job. And so I know what it's like to come from that aspect. So that's, if the Real Sales Training Course is the course, it's basically 5 modules broken down into smaller lessons. And there's a 100-question facilitation guide. So if your manager doesn't know anything about sales, all they have to do is to be able to read a question and facilitate some dialogue around that topic. And so you can watch it 5 to 20 minutes at a time during a staff meeting, and then you have some questions and that's it. But with the markets that we work in with the reoccurring sales, I mean, for most of my clients, all they need to do is make an extra 2 to 3 sales to pay for the course. And we've had people that are doubling their sales the next month after the course. So the goal is really to help a lot of people here. You know, I'm not really trying to get rich off the course. It's nice to be valuable again. I spent 22 years working with young kids, and like every day, talking to them and helping them out with their sales. And it's nice to be able to make a positive impact like that. So it's been fun to get back into it a little bit. And I love hearing the feedback from those guys, except for when Baines roast me in front of your whole group on there. I love those guys to death, but oh my gosh, they're embarrassing me to death on that.
That's great. I want to shift gears a little bit to talk about franchisors, because as we were getting ready to record, I asked you a question like, are you licensing this to franchisors? And if you're not, why not? So are you licensing your sales training to franchisors?
I haven't to franchisors yet. I'd be open to it. Right now, I have one license deal that is taking a part of my course, and it's for small businesses, helping with their social media advertising, helping with automations, because staffing's been such an issue. This software is great for helping out with automation and making it easier on your front desk. And I'm going to include part of my sales training with that package there. So that's one. That's Renowned Local is the company that I'm working with there. But I'd be open to franchisors, possibly either licensing out or doing something specific for them.
So here's my thought on that. So franchisors and franchisees, I think you would like this, but franchisors, as I've started one, and we looked at providing value and ROI to our franchisees. One of the things that I did is I went out and looked for vendors that were really good at what they did. And they were very specific on what they were good at. Maybe it was sales, maybe it was marketing, maybe it was, whatever is needed, industry experience. So there's, as a franchisor, you can only be the expert in so many things. And I'm a believer, and I'm seeing more franchisors have relationship with different vendors that are the experts in whatever it is. So Ryan, as I see this, I can see the value in franchisors, especially the reoccurring revenue type franchisors, having this for their franchisees, and they just pay you per franchisee that joins. And I think I know what your pricing is, and it's extremely reasonable. And franchisors, if you're helping someone with sales and marketing, that might come out of a certain budget out of your brand. So it's an interesting thing to look at. So either you hire someone at the corporate office to be able to be focused on sales, an expert like Ryan. You have to pay a lot of money for someone that good, but you hire somebody and they are always teaching your franchisees on how to sell, holding calls, making courses for them like this. Mm-hmm. Or you hire somebody, maybe it's a Sandler trainer, and Sandler is not cheap. Ryan's a lot cheaper than a Sandler training. But the point of it is, franchisors, be thinking out of the box. Be thinking, how can you deliver value to your franchisees by licensing or paying Ryan somehow for something like this? And take this beyond Ryan. Whatever it is that you need an expertise in as a franchisor, and you don't have that yourself. At one point, I looked at a door knocking vendor, because I knew some of the people, top people in the industry, hired a particular door knocking trainer to help their franchisees. So if you have any type of like door-to-door sales in a franchise, I know a great door knocking vendor for you. Or I know other people that are doing it in marketing. They are training franchisees or training people in industries knowing how to market in a very specific niche. So this whole thing of hiring vendors as an affiliate or giving them, pay them per franchisee is a really interesting thing. So you don't have to have everything in-house. So I really do encourage you to have a conversation with Ryan, because you could probably steal it from him, since some of these other franchisees are stealing it from him. But I think that's I think we needed to go there, Ryan, because it would be so helpful to a lot of different franchisors, and even emerging brands that don't have any type of sales process could hire you or somebody like you to come in and develop some things and be a little bit more specific to a brand, pay a lot more money, but you could do something like that. Have you thought about getting that granular with different brands?
Yeah, I have, but I left my full-time job for a reason. Like I'm not really looking for anything super full-time. I'm up for more consulting things, but I will give a big piece of advice to franchisors out there if they're developing their own sales things is you have to look at who your salespeople are before you build out the sales piece, right? A lot of times you bring in the sales expert who has all this sales experience, and that's not who the people who are going to be doing the sales in your brands are, right? The people who are doing sales in most of your brands are that entry-level worker right out of college or in their young 20s. And most of them don't want anything to do with sales. And when you come in with this is the best sales training, and we're going to teach you how to be salespeople, that's not what they want. And they don't do a good job. And a lot of times if you force the hand, that lowers retention. And I think that's where the match was really good is, my Cutco background, we worked with college kids that none of them came in as salespeople. Most of them didn't want to be salespeople. They just wanted a fun job or get their parents off their back for getting a job for the summer, And so it was a good match with my background and where most people who are performing the sales in a franchise are.
That's a good point. Let's dive deeper into that. Because I remember going to the sales training with you, and I remember people saying the people on the front lines don't like sales. They don't consider themselves a salesperson. They actually hate thinking about being a salesperson. Yeah. And so you've done a great job at helping the non-salesy people understand what they're really selling. So go deeper into that.
Well, I mean, first it just starts with breaking sales down. Like sales is a big, intimidating thing. And to be able to tackle something like that is you break it into smaller parts. And I said before, sales is a skill. Really, it's not a skill. It's a set of skills. And when you break each one down individually, that's what we do in the sales courses. We kind of take one at a time. And by the time you've taught everybody each one of them, they're like, oh, I can do each one of those. And you basically have Miyagi'd them, for lack of better word. You're like, then you can sell. They're like, wait, no. We just painted the fence and sanded the floor. And it's like, yeah, but when you put all those together, they're like, oh, shoot, that's what happens. And so, we also try to avoid a lot of sales jargon and things that are intimidating. Like I don't teach handling objections. Handling objections is like one of the scariest things to a new salesperson, even for experienced salespeople. They don't, handling objections kind of can get them on edge. So we break that down, use some different terminology, and it makes it a lot more low key. And it's really just about listening, learning about people, helping them out, having some empathy, and providing solutions.
You just made me think about something as I'm helping these franchisors through their franchise development process and working with potential candidates who might be potential franchisees. I think it'd be interesting to do a masterclass just for these franchisors on objection handling, because I call it objection handling. I probably shouldn't be calling it objection handling, but we should do like a training on some of these questions, because you're not a franchise development guy. You've bought a franchise, but you're not a franchise development guy. It'd be really interesting to get your take on how to answer questions that are coming from a different angle. So you up for doing a masterclass with me on that?
Yeah, I'd be happy to sit in and give my 2 cents.
I like it. Okay. So what's the difference between like the who's not selling in your organization? Like who in Orange Theory is not selling?
Nobody really. I mean, the after hours person that does some cleaning maybe, but the person who's actually getting the sale, the sign on the line on the contract, or the front desk people, our studio managers are able to step in and be able to do that and show them firsthand how to do that. Our system managers, the same thing. And our coaches are able to, or are performing a good part of the sales process. They're not the beginning, they're not the end, but they're the majority, and they're really what sells, is providing that great product. Both from Orange Theory, which I love my brand, but the coaches have to do a good job executing it. And everybody in my organization gets trained on sales and our 5 steps and the overall objective of what we're trying to accomplish, which I think is super important.
So do you call it sales when internally you're talking? What do you?
Yeah, I do. I do say it's sales, but I'm like, this is, we don't sell like you're typically been taught. And I go through our process, our 5 steps. And
let's talk about the 5 steps.
Yeah. Well, I think first, before the 5 steps, I always lay the foundation. is
let's talk about the foundation.
You have to know what you're trying to accomplish, what your objective is. And your objective is not to make a sale. And when we start with that, you can already see the people are like, they exhale. Okay, this isn't a place where you come in, I'm like, sell, 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 Our objective when somebody comes in is to create a long-term member who's going to be part of our community. That's what the goal, because we can make a lot of sales and not accomplish that objective. But that's not what I really want. Like, my objective needs to align with my vision for my business. And my vision for my business is having a ton of members who are all super happy, who are all engaged, who aren't quitting every 2 months, right? And so that's the objective first.
So before we get to the other stuff, because of, at one point, I probably would have glossed over what you just said, but I know enough now to understand the importance of that. Because I would want my manager to understand the importance of that, because sometimes as an owner, you're just looking at the numbers and you're looking at sales and what are those numbers are. But that long-term member that's extremely valuable to your organization isn't just a number on the chart. It could be a short-term member that is just there for 2 months, and that's really not who you're looking for. So how do you ensure that the people understand that, like, they really catch that goal?
Well, we start with that. And then, as I mentioned, that's the foundation, and every step is built on that. And we refer back to that. So each step we cover, we say, this is how that leads to our main objective. This is how that leads to the main objective. So the first step we get into is building rapport, right? First thing you got to do is create some kind of connection. They shouldn't just be like, pop in, throw a clipboard at them and say, fill it out, right? Especially in the fitness industry or beauty, any of these ones, people are nervous, they're intimidated. You got to kind of break down those walls and get to know them. And again, if we're going to make them part of our community, we need to know who they are. So that's where we refer back to that objective of, if they got to be a part of our community, we want to know who they are. The second step in the sales process for us is asking the right questions. So not just being an interrogator going through a onboarding or intake form, but really having a specific intention with your questions, both in finding their need and also handling some objections before they happen, and some different things that I won't get into today, but asking the right questions, because bottom line, we need to know what they want, right? And then the third part is education. That's where we're building value. That's where we're talking about our brand, but we don't need to give them everything. We need to give them what they want, right? When I started Orange Theory because I was a member and I loved it. That's how I got an Orange Theory. I wasn't looking for a franchise. I saw them open up their second location and I'm like, hey, I might be able to do this, but I love the brand. I really liked it. And when I called in, I asked one question. I'm like, I can't do a push-up right now because I hurt my shoulder. Can you work with me? And they said, yes. That was it. That was all I needed. They didn't have to give me an hour spiel on stuff that I didn't care about. I cared about the one thing that handled it. So we build rapport. We ask the right questions. We educate them about the things that we learned from those questions of what they need. And then instead of handling objections, we listen and we problem solve, right? It accomplishes the same thing, but we do it in a way that's less intimidating for the salesperson. And it's more fun to go through from a prospect's point of view. I've run staff meetings where I'm talking sales with our staff and we have members coming in, and I don't need to stop talking. I can talk about our sales process and I feel proud of our sales process. And I'm glad when the members hear the way we teach sales, because they appreciate the process they go through, right? And then the last part, if you handle the objections, if you listen and problem solve, that's where a sale happens. But that's not where we end, because again, that wasn't the objective, right? The objective wasn't a sale. The objective is a long-term member. So then we reassure and we bridge. So reassure is just making them feel great, and bridge there's different things you can do at the point of sale to help turn them into from a short-term client into a long-term member. And so bridging to a long-term member is what we're referring to when I say bridge there. So
give me an example of a bridge.
Some simple tactical things can be getting them into our Facebook group, right? So that way they're connected. We can introduce them in there. People say welcome. They start feeling part of the community. Another tactical thing can be booking out their second and third or fourth class before they leave the studio, right? Because we know that if they don't book them there, they're less likely to do it on their own. And if they wait too long, then all of a sudden they come in that danger zone of canceling too soon, right? Downloading the app. There's a few different tactical things. And then there's just other things more like, taking notes on them of some of those things you built rapport with and putting that in the contact log. So if somebody else is greeting them, they have something like, oh, hey, you just joined. Yeah. So-and-so said your son just went off to college at WSU. I went there. Right. And who does that stuff? Right. So we do.
I like that. All right. So somebody out there, they are just wanting to understand and start to learn. They're franchisee. They just want to get into understanding sales. They might not be a salesperson themselves, may not understand anything about it. What kind of books would you recommend or resources would you recommend besides going to your website, which give that website again, but just some basic stuff to learn and to start getting their feet wet with sales?
Yeah. Franchise sales training is my website. You know what? From a sales point, if I'm talking to a manager, I would almost look more at leadership than sales, because what the manager is the one who's going to have to effectively teach this person. And there's a lot of sales stuff. Sales really isn't that complicated. It just takes a lot of reps. And what it really takes is somebody managing them to help their expectations and lift them up when they're down and not get them too high when they're on their highs, to get them through those steps. It's like playing a musical instrument, right? And if you picked up a trumpet right now, if you've never played trumpet, you're not going to sound like Louis Armstrong, right? And what happens is these people who they first start sales, they get these initial reactions that aren't that great. Their initial results might not be as good. And that's why that management is so important, to be able to help frame their thinking of like, hey, you're going to get better, or hey, here's what to expect. So they're not caught off guard when they get objections or different things. So if I was a manager, I would look more into some leadership books to work with your staff. If you're a staff member, which I don't know how many staff members are, hey, props to you. If you're a staff member right now listening to Franchise Secrets saying, hey, I'm going to own one of these suckers someday, that's fantastic. Yep. But I don't have one off the top of my head that really, Jeff Gitomer has some great stuff. I like some of his things. I don't have one that really stands out.
What about leadership books? What kind of leadership books are you a big fan of?
John Maxwell's a great one. I love The Leader Who Had No Title, Robin Sharma. That's one of the big ones. And then Jim Rohn for anybody, whether you're a salesperson or we talked about that book. That was one of the ones we shared on that training.
I bought that book. It was a big book that was very expensive. I appreciate you giving that. What was the title of that one?
Jim Rohn, Leadership, Leading an Inspired Life.
It's a big book. It's not a cheap book, but it's worth it. So I got that. I'm like, thanks, Ryan.
For your people, just get on YouTube. There's Jim Rohn has a ton of YouTube stuff on there. Brian Tracy is fantastic as well. There's a lot of free content you can soak up from them.
It's all old school stuff. Go listen to that. Here's another interesting question. So have you worked with somebody, an owner, manager, and they don't have the right person to, even with the right leadership skills, to be able to teach their team how to sell? And they're just the wrong person. They no matter how much you tell them this is not selling, they think this is sales, and they refuse to do it, or they just don't do it.
Yeah. had a couple of those people who have sent me a new login saying, hey, this person no longer gets access to the course. Here's a new person. I didn't have the facilitation guide at first. And that's actually one of the things that I've improved the course as we've gone. And I just kind of give stuff away to anybody that already has it. But that was one, is I wanted to make it as easy for any manager with that facilitation guide. But I think you need to have a manager that has some patience and, again, can put themselves in the other person's shoes. Yep. Too much. They're just driving performance, driving numbers. And one of the things I've taught our managers in the franchise tribe mastermind is that you want to look at the cause, not the behavior, right? So are you managing the cause or the behavior? Because too often managers are managing the behavior of their people without looking at, hey, what's causing that behavior? Is it fear? Is it lack of education? Do they not know what they're supposed to be doing? Because if you're just managing the behavior without that cause is going to keep producing that, and it makes it really challenging.
So what are some of the things that are helpful to understand the cause?
One of the things I'm going to be doing in a couple of weeks is our CVI workshop. So the core values index, and this is a free assessment you can take on my website on the franchiseSalesTraining.com. But there's a million of them, right? There's Myers-Briggs and there's Enneagram and stuff. I've seen a lot of them. I love this one though, because it's super simple. There's only 4 different values. And with 1 hour of teaching, or even just like reading the handbook you can get from the free assessment, you can really understand it and see what makes people tick. Because it's really not a personality assessment. It's a core values index. It's who you are at your core. If I was to give my whole explanation of who I was and you were to talk to my mom, she would say, yep, that's who he's been since he was 2 years old, like exactly the same. And it really helps you understand from other people's point of view more, right? It saved me from like strangling some of my assistant managers in the past where I was not a successful sales rep. And then I became a very successful one. I'm like, I know how to get you to be successful. I know how you get to take you from a not successful manager to a successful one. And in my early career, I thought they needed to do it the same way that I did it. And I realized that not everybody's wired the same way, and they can take aspects of that. But a lot of times you have to teach it in a little different way because people are wired different. And what works really well for one person, it doesn't work for somebody else. And I think as a manager or a leader, the sooner you can recognize that, I mean, that's when you can really get the breakthrough performances from your people. And CVI is just a little tool that it's kind of like a cheat code for it to help you really see who they are and give you some direction for that.
I like cheat codes like that. Will you do a masterclass for the mastermind on that for me?
Yeah. Well, I'm doing one, October, I don't know when this will come out, but October 5th through 7th. And I'm doing the first hour is just kind of how it works. The second hour, though, I'm going to be talking about how to integrate it into your interviews. So I've worked with a few people in the tribe of taking somebody's readout, and you can see what will naturally be some of their strengths and weaknesses. So you can really investigate those, and then how to integrate it into your training program. Because some people, they work better when you throw them into the fire. Other people, they're going to quit, right? Some people, if you give them a stack of resources, here's everything you need to know, they love it. Other people, it's completely overwhelming. So how to integrate it into training, and then just some management techniques of, how to manage these people, how to challenge them, how to recognize them in a way that they'll appreciate.
Well, we'll make sure that we get that out to the tribe, get that out to the Franchise Secrets Facebook group, because that's going to be that'll be a great training. And I love those types of tools. One of them that I remember doing at Soul Salons was the color code, and it helped us understand how people behaved under pressure or not under pressure. And they behaved differently. Like how they were not under pressure was one way. You put pressure on them in a certain circumstance, they're behaving a different way. And so it really helped me understand some of our managers. I'm like, what are they doing? Why are they doing this? Why are they acting like this? Oh, it's because they're under pressure and they haven't really kind of balanced themselves out. So it really helped me understand them. And I think that's a great point. Any of these tools, if it helps you understand your staff better, and if that's your intention is to become better at understanding your staff, it's gonna make life a lot easier for you as an owner or as a manager with staff that report to you. So Ryan, man, this has been good. Any last bits of wisdom or anything that you want to share with? I
just wanted to thank you for everything. Your Franchise Secrets Facebook group is phenomenal. I've taken so much out of a free group, met a ton of people. The mastermind is an exponential step up of like the caliber of people that I've met through there, all the way from this first Sodak Shindig. I was so happy I was able to be a part of that and be there. But just thank you. Thank your family for putting on that event. And it's just been, last year was a really challenging year. In Washington, we watched 900 out of 1,100 Orange Theories open. And we were part of that 200 that didn't get to open for almost a full year. And it was really challenging, but being a part of these communities and getting to meet the people like you and the people that you've helped introduce has been really made 2020 2020 a great year. We're able to pull some things and pull some positives out of it. Right.
I love it, man. I appreciate you and what you give to all the different communities that we're in. So until next time, we'll talk to you, buddy.
All right. Talk to you soon.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Franchise Secrets Podcast. Whether you're watching or listening, please make sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel and to whatever channel you're listening on. If you want my help with anything from buying a franchise to franchising your business, please visit franchisesecrets.com.